Hi there, you're here with Jason.
And John from Anglo Forest, and we're going to take you through our survival knives and our best pick for using either one or a multitude of knives for a survival situation. So stick with us and we're going to take you through the review.
Okay, here are your three main categories of knives. Over this end, you've got your chopping knives. These you'd be using for processing wood.
It's mostly chopping.
Yeah, chopping, hence the name. In the middle, you've got your survival knives. These are going to kind of be your all-rounders. They'll do everything all right.
They'll chop a little bit, but they're more for like batoning when you come into kind of like your chopping wood. You'd be there all day if you're chopping, but they'll do the job. And then we're coming on to more of like your bushcrafty knives.
Yes, your kind of fine work, your feathering, just cutting paracord, sharpening sticks, just round the camp work really.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to put together a bit of a video of whether you take one knife, whether you kind of want to put two together, whether you want to put three together for your maximum jobs. You could put just one knife and use that, but how effective would that be is what we're going to go through, and would you kind of be prepared to carry more than one knife to kind of do all the jobs that are required. So hence the reason why we popped this one in as well, just because it's kind of it's almost in between the survival knives and the chopping. It'll do a bit of kind of everything. So but we'll kind of get into that. So if we kind of start with the chopping knives, if you want to go through them.
So first one we've got here is the parang. This is the biggest of all of them.
Longest, I'd say. Longest.
Yeah, longest
knife. Yeah. Got different kind of ways of chopping. One's longer, different balance. So you've got your curved blade, which is carbon steel, kind of powder coated. The steel is 1075. It's got quite a thick spine. I don't know whether you can see that there, but it's quite a beastie kind of full tang chopping blade. The weight actually distributes more towards where the curve is here, towards the end. So the difference between this one and the village parang is the fact that if you're kind of giving it more of a swing, the weight of it actually does, you're looking at taking the chop towards the end here, where you'll get a good, it takes a bit more effort, but you can almost compare this to an axe. When you're using it, you do get a good kind of chopping action on that. Price point on that is, I tell you what, it's almost a steal, isn't it? It's like robbery. £49 roughly for that. Comes with a leather sheath as well. We're going to go through all the sheaths a bit later on, but for the price, I think the sheath actually sells.
No-brainer, really.
The sheath actually sells for £20 around that figure.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the blade alone here is
like 20 something,
£29 for the actual knife itself, and for that reason, you can't go wrong with that. And so I would use, me personally, I put that together with like a bushcrafty knife, and you can pair them up. You can put a sheath. I mean, I've just kind of stuck the smaller sheath to this onto the side of it, and you can pair them up. So when you're out and about, you can do your chopping with that, and then kind of switch to more of a bushcraft knife. So moving on to the village parang.
Version of this really. You'd use this. It's going to give you, because of the weight of it, it's going to take a lot less effort just to stick into things and cut through.
Yeah, some people prefer to sit. Some people prefer to sit down. It's safer sitting down. A bit like when you're using an axe. If you're kind of taking a swing and you miss, you're going to hit the ground rather than your leg. So for people that don't want to put in a lot of effort with doing the chopping work, then go with this one. I love the handle on this. It's a lot better if it's kind of raining or you're sweating slightly. The grip, you can be pretty lazy with that when you're chopping. That actually kind of holds your hand grip quite nicely there, doesn't it? The only thing you've got to be a bit careful of is that there's no hand guard, so you can have a bit of a tendency to slip through. and hence the reason why it might be worth kind of putting a lanyard around there, so you can. There's multitude of videos. I mean, something we could do a bit later on is a video of different ways of using a lanyard to secure your hand on a blade handle. So
that one's got the longer grind as well.
Yeah, different grind on that compared to this one. This is kind of more of a shorter grind there. Not sure the names of the grinds on these. I'll put them in the video in the description. Whereas with this one, it is a bit more steeper, which is probably better for chopping. I'm not sure how good it is for, whether it's better for batoning, but in all honesty, with that one, I wouldn't baton with that one.
Yeah, I'd say batoning for your survival.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, the steel's the same. So you've got your 1075 carbon steel. It's actually got more of a hammered finish on there. Doesn't come powder coated, but the steel's better on the rust, which we'll come to on the Ontario cooker eye. Is a different steel, which is a bit more prone to rust, which I found out after I stripped it all of its powder coating. It does rust up quite quick, so probably needs another coating, or you just got to kind of keep your knives kind of up together. I like this one. Again, you could match that one up with one of the Bushcraft knives and have a good little kind of system there. So you could have two knives, but I know you're not going to be clearing the brush and things like that with this. You could use it, but you tie yourself out. You probably want more of a grass cutting machete for stuff like that. But for me, that's kind of a bit of an all-rounder. It's a good blade. That's my personal preference on. I would carry that one with a Bushcraft knife. That one's a bit more expensive. This one's around about £80 mark on that one, so a little bit more expensive than this one. The parang, village parang's a little bit more expensive, more it's heavier, just a different job. It just comes down to personal preference. But again, that's why I like this one, because it's so cheap. Comes with a nice. Okay, so we're moving on to this one's like kind of in its own category in itself, which is the Ontario cooker eye. This one uses the 1095 carbon steel, flat grind. Doesn't come like this out of the box. This comes in like with the black powder coating. I've stripped this off. Does kind of you've got to kind of keep this up together, using your to maintain the knife, because it does rust quite quickly without the coating on there. And I've noticed once I've stripped it, you can see where the actual cut of the knife is. So whether it's a good idea to have done that, I don't know. I'm probably going to look at recoating it again, just because I can see all the marks all over the blade on there. So a little experiment that I'll probably kind of redo, I guess. Made in the USA. Don't know whether I mentioned, flat grind, good for batoning, good for chopping because of the shape of the blade. Obviously the Gurkhas have kind of made this kind of shape of knife famous. So a bit of a kind of a multi-purpose knife. Comes with a nice hand guard there as well, so it's not going to be like these where they're going to slip, cut, and again equally down the bottom where you can move down into the blade. Got the Kraton handle, which also has the grooves in there for if you're sweating and things. You've got a bit of extra grip on there. A lot of people kind of moan about this type of handle, but I actually quite like it. If you were going to be kind of putting on different handles, obviously it's going to increase the price of the blade. All the majority of the Ontario knives do come with this type of handle, and it has a nice, I'm guessing it's a brass eyelet in there for your lanyard in there. For me, the way that you think, it's more of a kind of in the middle of your survival knife and your chopping. You could compromise on both of those.
I've got an antique cookery that I got from like an old surplus shop, and they are absolute beasts of knives.
Oh, yeah.
For chopping, they're great.
It's not as big, is it? It's not as big as it. You know, you're going
to put the work in with the cookery to get through something, but it'll do the job.
If you're carrying that around, you're going to know you're carrying it around. Whereas this one, you could hook to your belt and probably be as equal as that in terms of, you know, length, weight.
Something I will say on the subject of the handles is, if you do pick up one of the traditional cookeries, then the handles are absolute hell. It'll come loose, your hands will get blistered. It seems to be a problem with all of them, just the way the handles are made.
It's like your modern version.
I'd always go for a modern one over one of the old ones.
I did a lot of kind of research into before I wanted a decent cookery, and this was the one that kind of came up. It was kind of, at the time, it was a bit of a toss up between that and the cold steel. Cold steel was about £200, come with a nice sheath. This one come with an absolute dog shit pile of sheath that you might as well just throw away. But I didn't kind of want it for that. I wanted the knife, the blade, and I wanted to pay less money for it. So this one came in at about £81. So this was the one that I kind of went with and chose.
I'm sure for the sake of 120 quid, you could probably make a decent sheath, you know, or 100 quid make a
get
decent
somebody
sheath
to kind of make something,
money.
You know, purpose built for it, for what you want it for.
Okay, this is the BK7. I kind of bought this as my survival knife, so this is to do everything. Actually, I'll be a bit careful, it's razor sharp, jiggling it around. It's performed fantastically. I would say it's a bit big for doing your bushcraft stuff. The handle's good, but can be made a lot better by adding bicycle inner tube. This will give you a bit more grip in the rain. It's a powder coated blade. I was looking at taking it off, but I'm pretty lazy in the upkeep of my blades, so if I've just got to look after one kind of millimetre along the edge rather than the entire blade, I'm happy. It's also got a bit on the back here. I'm not sure what you'd ever use it for generally hitting.
You could probably kind of hammer in if you were. I don't know what you would.
You'd have to be pretty precise though.
No, I'm thinking more of the blade into something.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
You could hit a piece of wood onto that, jam it in. I don't know.
But I'll go with my main complaints, since we're kind of we're going against each other on these. Main complaints would be it's a little bit too long for bushcraft stuff. I think there's the BK Companion maybe, which is a 6-inch blade. I'd probably go for that one over it. Your plastic grips without anything added to them, a little bit slippy. What else do I have issues with? I don't know what my other issues were.
First, Jason, I'm shocked that you're kind of ripping into your own knife.
I thought
you're trying to get it out of the way before I kind of do it for you.
No, I thought I'd handicap myself a little bit, since it's obviously better.
Fine.
Okay,
you finished, have you?
Yeah, that's all that needs to be said. It's a very sharp knife. It'll stay sharp. It's got a very nice sheath that we'll see later.
See, I chose the SP50. Yeah, okay, bit longer, but some people prefer their bigger knives. With this, it was the 5160 stainless steel. Sorry, not stainless steel, the carbon steel. It's got powder coating on there, because that type of steel is quite bad for rust again. So I like to keep the coating on there. Some people kind of go with a different type of coating on there as well, but it depends on what you're kind of into. But they used a water jet cut on this, so kind of helps with the actual not putting any stress on the actual steel, which kind of makes it kind of a stronger type of steel. They used to, on the older ones, they actually kind of stamped into the so if you look at into the Ontario Cookery, I'll show you a bit of a close-up on this a bit later, but they've stamped in the name and everything into there, which again can put stress on the blade. This one's just been lasered on, so you're not kind of putting any stress on the blade. The thickness of this is pretty thick, and oh yeah, it seems quite a bit thicker than your blade there, Jason.
Yeah.
Which again, very good for batoning. So the blade thick. Hang on, I've not finished. The blade thickness and the length of this makes this far better for batoning than the actual BK7. But in the BK's defence, I would say, you know, does kind of handle maybe the Bushcraft side of it a little bit better than this. So, you know, for me, I chose this one purely for the handle. Didn't have to do too much with it. You know, the actual the feel of the knife I found was very nice. And I tried a couple of knives before I bought this, and the actual feel of the knife is nice. The balance of it's good. You can probably do a bit more of a chop with this, whether you would want to get into that or not, but it would handle it better. Again, it's the comparisons to that knife would be kind of like your RTAC 2, I think it's called, and obviously your BK9. But for me, you know, I chose this one. Whether it's better than the BK9 or not, I don't know. I've not used a BK9, but so far, I do like this knife. I like the feel of it, and price on this one is around about £115, which the BK9 would be a little bit more than that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like one. I'm not sure. I know my BK7 was 120-ish.
Yeah, so it's going to be more. So that one is cheaper. Again, comes down to the style, what you like, what you prefer, but very good for batoning, just because of the flat grind, and you've got that slight steep kind of angle moving up into that real thick blade, so it kind of pops open the wood that the BK7 wouldn't do.
But one question I will say to you is, would you want to get into some heavy chopping with the handle? I'm not sure that's full tang. So you could be left with a half-cut bit of wood and a handle in your hand. This one, all day long.
Interesting.
That's all I'm saying, you know, a knife that's better at chopping with a rubbish handle.
I think it is a full tang, but not a...
Okay, so if they just kind of wrapped around there a bit.
Yeah, the handle, so the steel will go right the way through, but it doesn't show up at the further end. It's very similar to Condor as well. Just go back to bed. Okay, you finished, have you?
One last thing to add. The one problem I had with this was that it's a bit big for bushcraft stuff. Something that I'll come to when I come to the sheath is it's got a side sheath in with the sheath that fits the BK Remora.
Yeah.
So
this comes with a pretty much a similar sheath, doesn't it? Yeah. It's a nylon sheath. Comes with a pocket on the side. I've actually popped in the Silk Boy. Absolutely fits in perfectly. In fact, I'm going to go and get it because I just think it's worth mentioning right now as we speak. So there's the sheath, and you've got your clip here in there. You know, I've got my Silk Boy saw just for doing some small kind of cuts to, and that fits in perfectly in there. So that's what I match it up. I mean, you could put knife sharpeners, you name it, anything else in there. So yeah,
cool. One thing that would be a disadvantage with getting the Remora is that it'd knock you up to about, I guess, around £160 all said for that setup then. So you get into kind of big money then.
Yeah. For me, if you're carrying these knives, you want to be able to kind of match them up. The trouble is, it doesn't do everything great, does it? So
no.
You're not going to be chopping with them that as good as these, and you're not going to be able to do the bushcraft side of things as good as some of these. So you're left with a bit of a dilemma of like.
The thing is, if you took either one of these, just one knife, the only knife that was on you,
it's not going to disappoint you. You could still
do a hell of a lot better than someone with this knife trying to do feathering.
Exactly.
Or
no,
someone with that one trying to take a limb off a tree.
It does the jobs because you can baton with them, so it does the jobs. But with a little bit more less kind of finesse, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
For
You're gonna be sweating.
yeah. So I think that's why it's a good kind of reason to kind of, as much as I love this knife, and I would kind of take that as my one knife to go kind of somewhere for the size and everything else that you could use it for. You know, it's you're going to want to pair them up, I guess, with other knives, and hence the reason why I put the because I'm not going to be doing an awful lot of chopping with it. That's why I decided to put the Silk Boy into the sheath so that I could do that type of work with it as well. We were kind of up here last time, and Jason made a pathetic little bench with his pathetic little knife, and
I don't know what happened to that. It's gone.
Of course it has.
It's been taken off to a furniture shop and sold for hundreds.
Oh, behave. So yeah, the Bushman cold steel, made in China. Kind of, you can fashion it. It's basically got a hollow. Be careful with this. It's basically got a hollow handle. This can be then made. I mean, some people argue, well, why do you need to do that? You might as well just kind of sharpen up this and make it as a spear. Yeah, fine. So this obviously would be a better option. It's got a small hole in the actual steel where you can then screw into it to kind of hold it in place. Doesn't come with the wrap, paracord wrap. I kind of added that to it, so that's not straight out of the box. The sheath comes with a ferro rod as well with it. There's been a lot of talks that these knives are quite indestructible. People have been throwing them, throwing knives as well.
I've seen quite a few slow motion videos of people abusing the hell out of them.
Yeah.
Just bending all over the place, then just coming straight back to how they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, doesn't, you know, first sight you'd think that this was kind of a bit of a piece of junk, but in actual fact it is actually a really good knife. Not very thick. I like my knives to be quite thick though, so when you're doing any bushcrafty type stuff as well, you want something to be able to kind of get your thumb onto. So yeah, it's got its own purposes. Yeah, it's only about £30, I think. Yeah, around that figure. So you've hollow. You could probably put some survival gear into there, plug the ends up. So you've got that option as well with that knife. We just thought we'd put that into the mix because it offered a little bit of a different option with the being able to create a spear with that. So
yes, my favourite next.
Go on.
Next up's the Mora. I think it's the Mora Rugged. They come in just hundreds of different variations. I'm not hugely sure on what the difference is between the variations. I've never really seen a massive amount of difference, but this is your absolute budget workhorse knife. I originally got one of these because I'd got my BK7, and because it had cost me so much money, I didn't want to destroy it. And I'd seen videos of people battening and trashing their big expensive knives, so I was like, I'll buy a Mora, I'll beast it, I won't look after it, just any job that could break or destroy a knife, I'll use my Mora for it. And every single time without fail it's survived and excelled at it. They are absolutely fantastic knives.
For the money, I mean, I don't even know how they make them so cheap. Where there's any profit in that type of knife, I don't know. But yeah, you know,
for your little jobs, carving especially, I use mine as a carving knife. You look, it's just perfect sort of length.
Grind on it is, you know, everybody always talks about that type of grind for your bushcraft stuff. Is good, very similar to the bush law. Similar grind on that.
Carbon steel that I've never seen any signs of mine rusting. And
no. I've highly polished out of the box.
Yeah, I've not done anything to look after mine.
The only thing that anybody ever gripes about is on the spine. It's kind of not finished. It's just where it's been cut and snapped off, and
yeah,
you've got that rough finish. I've tried filing mine, but it took me forever, and I gave up in the end. But it's not rough. It doesn't kind of get in the way, or got a nice little hand guard on there for any of the work you're doing with it. Like Jason said, you can use and abuse this and practice on your sharpening and everything. So for anybody looking at kind of doing things to the knife which they wouldn't do with a more of an expensive knife, this would be the one. Pretty much everybody should own one of these.
Yeah.
For the cost of it.
Yeah, I
Is it
think it's like
£10?
10 or 11 quid. And
Yeah.
the thing is that if you take it out, abuse it, and break it,
You're not going to be too
just
peed off.
buy
are you?
another one.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. No, totally.
I could go through 12 Moras before I was up into BK territory.
Yeah.
So
Comes with a reasonable plastic sheath again as well. Like, you know,
does everything it needs to do.
Yep.
Belt clip.
it's got a drainage hole in the sheath, so water won't hold in there. Which then takes us on to the bush law. Very similar again. A lot of people kind of rave about this knife. For me, until I kind of compared to the Parangs, which uses quite kind of thick steel, this one is quite for me. It's quite long, and in the hand it feels like it's going to have quite a bit of movement because the steel isn't that thick, and it's not, for me it just didn't feel like a lot of control on there. So as much as everybody kind of raved about it, I wasn't convinced when doing a lot of the bushcraft stuff, so like your feathering and whatnot. So price on that one was £49. So bush law then, similar to the Mora with the grinds on there. Like I said, not overly kind of keen on the very thin steel on there for bushcraft. It just feels like when you're doing your work, you've just got no major push. Like, put it this way, until you felt the F1 in your hand with that, I mean, that's just got a real nice thick spine
That's
on that.
kind of this sort of
Yeah.
area spine.
Laminated kind of steel. It's just the grind's different, but I tell you what, out of the box, that is razor sharp, and it just feels. It's just until you kind of, it doesn't look like if you see pictures of it, you just think, oh,
It's just a plain looking knife,
Yeah,
isn't it? But
but
it's
it just does the job
perfectly
perfectly.
designed,
Yeah.
that one.
It just feels so much control when it's small, short, but you've just got that ability to. You can just tell as soon as you pick it up. And again, full tang, protrudes out the end slightly, so you could kind of knock that into wood if you needed to. So kind of wrapping it up, for me, I love the F1, Fallkniven F1. We're not going to go into too much detail about them fully. We can do separate reviews on them, but for doing any type of bushcraft work, I can't imagine you can get a knife much better than
That's the best bushcraft knife there is. I reckon. It's
£110, I believe.
Yeah.
For that. So well worth the money for that type of work. If, like I said, if you're going to spend the money, get that, save up, get that one over these. But it's, don't get me wrong, does the job. Good to pair up with some of the knives if you're kind of like into kind of matching them all up. Like I said, there is a lot of good reviews about this knife, and it will do the work, but not as good as the Fallkniven, and it's half the price. So, for somebody kind of out there, I'm not bashing it. It's still a good knife. Bit of a close up on the Condor Parang. There's a thickness of the spine there. The only difficulty with this one is that it is a long knife, so you have to get a bit of a swing on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kneel down, think about safety first, and chop away from myself. But I've got a bit of a dry piece of dead wood here already chopped up, so we'll give this a bit of a chop test on here. Okay, so I'm going to be using the end of the blade, like I said before, and see what you guys think. I'll do it towards the end. So you can see it's quite a bit of a bite in there, and you can probably hear that. I'm not putting an awful lot of force into that, but already you can see that You know, you I mean, look at that. Almost like an axe. So, Condor parang. So, again, this is the village parang. You can see the thickness of that. A little bit more weighty than the normal parang, Condor parang. So, let's go and give this a test with a chop. Again, I should be kneeling down with this. I'll chop a little bit away so you get to see. Again, to be fair, because of the grind on this, I mean, it does really bite in, and you can see that where I'm struggling to pull that out. And again, you can almost see there's a bit more control on the actual chopping of that. In fact, this is probably a better chopper than the parang, but for me it just kind of, I like the feel more. I like the length, whereas this is a bit more kind of, you could probably miss a bit easier with this one, but for somebody that doesn't kind of do an awful lot of chopping, or they don't want to put as much effort in, obviously this one will do the work a little bit kind of easier. You can really see there. Now we're going to look at the Ontario cookery. Please bear in mind though that I've not sharpened this and I've abused this. I've batoned with this and it's pretty much everything else. So probably not going to get a hugely accurate kind of look at this. This has a different grind. It is a flat grind on this compared to the others, and so you know it won't be as good at chopping, but you know certainly for batoning this would be probably better. For the chop test, you can see you have to put a lot of effort into it. Doesn't bite into the wood just because of the grind on there. So you know, for out and out chopping, yeah, it's not better than those, but you know the capabilities of this is, you know, you can do other things as well. So those ones definitely win over the chopping. As you can see there's a little bit more effort needed to put into that as well. There's a little bit of vibration as well with the chopping, but obviously kind of maybe putting the lanyard on as well would help out with that. And the fact that I was kind of putting in a bit more effort into kind of putting in the chop. Here's my favourite of the survival knives, which Jason's probably frowning at me right now. The SP50, the Gen 2. Again, very similar kind of to the, well, probably because of the brand, but the Ontario cookery. Same again, flat grind. Not use this an awful lot, so this will be a bit sharper out than the cookery. So we'll go and see how this kind of takes up with the chopping. the initial thoughts of that, I could really feel that in my hand towards the end, right into your little finger when you're chopping. Again, putting a lot of effort into it. I found the cooker eye was an actual lot better at chopping. I guess the shape of the blade, the weight distribution from the curve of the knife actually felt like it was a lot better. Like I said, again, I would probably baton with this rather than chopping. Seems like a bit of a laborious task having to chop with a knife than you would with the other blades that we just used. And again, as you can see on the wood, it's not really kind of made much of an impact, and I'd be there pretty much all day trying to chop at that. But more of a batoning. We'll test out the batoning capabilities in a second. But again, cooker eye, even though it was blunt, I think because of the curve of the blade, actually chopped a lot nicer than this one did. So moving on to the BK7. Handle actually feels like it fits into your hand a little bit better than the SP50, but we'll see what it's like. Similar grind on there as well, so we're a bit shorter, but we'll see how this kind of takes up with the chop test. To be honest, it doesn't not really a knife you would use for chopping. You wanted to bounce out your hands a little bit, but the actual, it didn't didn't chop too bad, in all fairness. Just the weight of it, there wasn't enough weight there on the blade and length of the blade to kind of really kind of get any meat into, it wasn't biting into the wood, but it did a bit of, I'll be hard pushed to say whether this actually kind of did a better job than the SP50 in terms of chopping. But then I'd be interested to see whether this was better for batoning than the SP50. As you can see, you've got the drop point on this knife, which will probably cause maybe some issues with the batoning. You've only got a small piece of wood there small piece of steel there to actually, baton on. So we'll see.
Can do it. So I've got 3 knives I'm going to use, and I've got 3 same size bits of wood cut from the same bit of one limb, so it should be a nice fair test. So yeah, I'll get cracking. Okay, so first out I'm going to use the Ontario SP50. So I'll just try and get a little bite in here. Try and do it so the camera can see. That's absolutely sailing through. Pretty much cracked out the bottom now, so it's just taking it through to the rest. So as you can see, that's gone through that no problems. It's not the best quality wood, as you can see. It's got quite a few nasty little bits that are not ideal to be battening, but there we go. Now the reason I think this one may outperform mine is the thickness of the spine there and the shape of the blade, so you're going to get right in and it's going to go like a wedge right through there and split the wood down for you. Okay, next up's the BK7. It's a slightly thinner spine, but I've got faith in it. I've used it a few times out and about myself, so should do the job. It's not really going to matter, the wood's not great. Swap ends. So again, it's sailed through. It's actually got a slightly nicer bit, I will say. Not as many little knots and things, but again, no problems. If you need to, you know it's going to sail through. So yeah, it's done a good job there. Next up, we'll give the cookery a go. I think I'm probably going to want to go on
Placing
the end.
it.
Okay. There you go. There we go. Yeah. Slightly thin a bit, but I think this got the worst of the bunch in terms of bits. Give it another blast on a slightly thicker bit. There we go, yeah. Yeah, no issues. All said, I'd say all three of them all did the job pretty well. Easiest of the bunch, I'm going to have to bite the bullet and say it is probably this one. Although this one did take a few less strikes to go through, that was going through pretty nice wood.
Hi guys, back at HQ. You know, business as usual in my business attire. To summarise the video, if you're going to be taking one knife, my recommendation would probably be the cookery. You'll have to make that slight adjustment by the handle just to get that one nice grind on there, and then you can use that for your more bushcrafty sort of tasks. Get your thumb on the outside of that blade and feather with it. It's still going to kind of be capable of chopping bigger limbs of wood and battening. So if you're willing to play out with your knife, then that'd be the one. If not, SP50 or the BK7 both perform pretty well. You know, I'd say about even. For your chopping stuff, I'd say if you paired one of those with like I think they're called pocket boys, the little folding saws, then you'll be hitting everything. You can cut big limbs of wood, you can do your bushcraft stuff, all of it, not perfectly, but you're going to be able to do it to a good enough degree to get by on. The other option you've got available to you would be to take two knives. With this, you'd probably take one of the prangs. Realistically, it's going to be personal preference on that. As we mentioned in the video, one of them, the smaller one, slightly easier to kind of cut with, but you can get a bigger swing and more impact and kind of get through things a bit quicker with the longer one, but it will take a bit more energy and it is heavier. If you teamed one of those up with one of the Bushcraft knives, then it's just a case of basically how much you're willing to spend. You've got the Fallkniven, which is miles above the rest. Next up, you've got the Condor Bush Law, which, if you want to pair your knives together and have them looking nice, it's got similar handles and it'd look good. Finally, you've got the Mora, which is just a beat stick of a knife. It's going to cost you about 10 quid. You can do anything with it, abuse it. I keep expecting mine to break, it never does. So yeah, it's basically up to you on how much you're willing to carry and how much you're willing to spend. Alright guys, if you liked the video, then please subscribe. We're going to have a lot of different videos coming up in the next couple of weeks. Also leave us a like. If you have any opinions on the knives we used, any recommendations, any tips, leave them in the comments. Always good to see different views on things. Also check out the website, www.anglofaro.co.uk. Cheers.